What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here with Cheesehead TV with your Packers Daily Chat. The Packers getting ready for the showdown with the Miami Dolphins on Sunday, a game originally supposed to be a noon kickoff local time, but now will be at 3:25, much to the delight of one Corey Banke. Packers seem to be getting healthy after a rash of injuries against the Patriots last Sunday night. Bryan Bulaga should be good to go, according to Mike McCarthy. Everyone practicing today. However, Mike Daniels was added to the injury report that just came out a little bit ago, prior to us going live. He is apparently dealing with a shoulder injury. Outside of that, everyone seemed to be practicing in some capacity other than Kevin King, who obviously is dealing with the hamstring injury. Hello to everyone on the chat. Good to see you. Travis asks, any news on Kumaro? He seemed to have a connection with Rodgers. I agree, the connection was good there in the preseason, which was a long time ago. There's no news on Kumaro because they have started practicing Trevor Davis in anticipation of bringing him off of injured reserve next week. As we discussed yesterday, he's not eligible to play this weekend, but he will be activated most likely for the Seattle game. They desperately need his return ability. They haven't had a legit returner pretty much all season. So they will bring him up, and I think they'll probably save the second spot where they can bring up somebody from IR, at least for another week or two. Do you miss Morgan Burnett? Are you asking, do I personally miss Morgan Burnett? Not really. What do you know about Ibrahim Campbell, and how do you think the Packers will use him? John, I think he's a box safety. He's a guy, he was a rookie Mike Pettine's final year in Cleveland, so he's got some familiarity with the scheme. I think he's a lot like a lot of the safeties they already have, in that he's a guy who excels closer to the line of scrimmage, but his detriments are very apparent when he's asked to play anything close to free safety. Any further away from the line of scrimmage he gets, the more trouble he's in. That doesn't mean he can't be effective. He could possibly be kind of eased into that Whitehead role that's clearly now going to be open, although you think Josh Jones probably steps up there a little bit. But add some physicality to the position. There's no doubt about that. That is his one calling card. Glomar, Tom Oates' piece on the lack of talent, very telling. If you haven't read Tom's piece, I tweeted it out this morning, highly recommended. Tom breaking it down as far as kind of the feel around the team right now. It's a bit different this time of year. Usually you've got a bunch of guys who are defiant and ready to turn things around. It doesn't really feel like that around the Packers at the moment. Now, maybe that all changes with a win on Sunday, but right now it's interesting. Thoughts on Daniels this year? I thought he played his best game out in LA. I thought he played pretty well against New England. I know people are wondering where production is coming as far as sacking the quarterback, but that's never really been his game. He hasn't been given a ton of opportunities as far as jet rushes, being able to get up the field. He's doing a lot within the scheme that allows Blake Martinez to roam free. I think he's having a solid year. I don't think he's playing probably quite up to the level that we've grown accustomed to with Mike, but I think he's rounding into shape as the year goes on. I was talking about the player Morgan Burnett. I was too. Do you think we have a shot at the playoffs? Of course, Tim. Absolutely. They've got to win a lot of games, but they absolutely have a shot. Hey, Aaron. Hey, how are you? We must put 4 quarters together this week. David, I couldn't agree more. It's a team that has been showing spurts, showing promise, but not putting it together. Obviously, the Dolphins are nowhere near the level of team that the Patriots or Rams are, but they are still a formidable foe, and the Packers have got to play a complete game on Sunday in hopes of a victory. What bugs me more, the red zone offense or running the play clock all the way to 0? Oh, Christopher, without question, running the play clock all the way to 0. That drives me insane. As anyone who watched the watch party on Sunday night will testify, it absolutely boggles my mind. It is absolutely killing me to watch week after week after week. And that's the aspect of it that really kills you. Is that, okay, fine, it happens a couple times, whatever. But when it happens repeatedly, week after week, in the same kind of scenarios, and you're burning these timeouts, and you're just looking like a clown car coming in and off the field and at the line of scrimmage, what are we doing here? What's the point of life? I mean, get it together, fix the issue, everyone can see it. It reminds me of a bit of Dom Capers his last season, where week after week we saw, playing with 10 men or guys coming off the field, on and off the field, total confusion, not knowing who should be on, who should be off. That speaks to a level of, a lack of communication, a lack of preparedness. And it's showing up on offense now. And that's Mike McCarthy's responsibility. Why is the offense not using the pistol formation anymore? Ernesto, that's a good question. They went to it quite a bit, obviously, when Rodgers was hurt. They went to it at the second half of that Bears game for that very reason. But it hasn't been a staple part of their offense. I do think we might see some more of it as the second half of the season winds on, but it hasn't been a staple. I think I would like it to be. I would like to see more of it, as I assume you would too, but we'll see. Doing a watch party on Sunday. Yes, Jay, I'll be here. It'll be me and probably a producer, much like we did with the Buffalo game all those weeks ago, but we'll definitely be doing a watch party. If nothing else, you can watch me drink and be depressed as the Packers lose. I mean, very celebratory when they win. That's what I'm talking about. This game must be the start of a run. I mean, they've got to win it. I don't know about the run. I don't know about, run the table, 2.0, whatever. They've got to win this game. This is a game they should win. This is a game they have to win. Do you think Aaron Jones will be featured as much as he was Sunday night? I do, actually. I know the fumble would obviously put him in the doghouse for a lot of people, but I think he's the talent they have to feature. I think you saw how effective they are with him back there. I think he'll continue to be their lead dog, so to speak. Kuhn wouldn't have fumbled. Maybe, but he would also have gotten 2 yards. Not seeing screens either. Well, they just don't run them very well. I don't hate that they don't run a lot of screens. I know a lot of people say get to the screen game, but they just don't run them very well. They don't design them very well. And they clearly don't practice them a lot because you see that show up on Sundays where they run screens and it just doesn't develop well, or the linemen don't get out in sync, or the back is not patient enough with his blocking, etc. So while I think in theory more screens would be a nice idea, especially if teams are coming with pressure, they don't execute them very well. And that's the other thing when you're talking about against pressure. Teams haven't been blitzing a whole lot. I think the Patriots blitz less than 20% of the snaps. So if they're getting a 4-man rush, that's not going to be very effective, using a screen game. Let's head over to Twitter, as I always do. If you can't make it live, I like to answer some questions via social media with the hashtag PackersDaily. And we'll start off with the question, would I cut Nick Perry for his poor play at the end of the season? Well, it's not quite that simple. I think you would like to, because his contract makes it tenable after this year. They can cut him with very little cap penalty. But you got to be careful, because you have to think that Clay Matthews is probably playing out the end of his deal and not coming back. So then you cut Nick Perry. Well, then you're down to Kyler Fackrell and Reggie Gilbert as your starters. Now, obviously, you've got the whole offseason to fix that, but you don't want to just go willy-nilly cutting football players that, while they may not be as productive as you had hoped, you've still got to throw viable players out there, make your defense go. You don't want to, cut off your nose to spite your face, so to speak. You've got to keep enough bodies to operate your defense. Now, I'm not saying that means that Nick Perry sticks around, but there's got to be a plan going forward if and when they decide to do that. Do you agree that the thing that affects the Packers offense the most is field position? It is too difficult to drive 75, 80, 90 yards on every drive and score TDs. Defense needs to help the offense, and the offense needs to help the defense. Absolutely. They talk about it all the time. It's called complementary football, and I very much agree, and I think you're pretty astute, that the Packers have had a lot of long fields this year. They've played a lot of games where they have been having to deal with 70, 80-yard drives, or attempting to, backed up against their own end zone. We've seen them now 2 weeks in a row having to come out of their own end zone. Obviously, 2 weeks ago they had the safety. This past week they were able to get out. But yes, I think teams are doing a very good job of keeping that field position as a detriment. And look, J.K. Scott was drafted to try and help solve that problem. He's supposed to be flipping fields. And I thought he had a strong game on Sunday night, but they need more from him. He's got to use that big leg to put the other team in that position, because it hasn't been happening nearly enough. 8 games in, what are your thoughts on the job Mike Pettin has done so far? He's done pretty well, especially considering what he's been given. ESPN, the matchup show, put out a stat earlier today on Twitter, showed that the Packers, I think, were number 6 in pressure percentage on opposing quarterbacks. And I think most people were probably pretty surprised by that statistic. I think a lot of that is obviously, due to Mike Pettin. I think clearly they have had real trouble putting 4 quarters of football together. They've been really streaky. But overall, given the personnel he's had to work with, I think Mike started pretty strongly in Green Bay. With Randall Cobb gone after this season, presumably, who do you see in the slot for next year? A drafted player, GMO or EQ, maybe a free agent like Golden Tate? I'd be surprised if they went after a Golden Tate. But, Devontae has been used in the slot quite a little bit already. We saw him there quite a bit these last 2 weeks. I think they would definitely train those guys to play all 3 positions. Any one of them could be moved inside there. It may be as simple as all of them taking that role and not using a dedicated slot guy. Mike prides himself on, making sure that all those wide receivers know all 3 positions. Now, all of that said, there is the specter hanging over the entire proceeding of what if they're in a different offense next year? What if there's a different coach? That's a real possibility. So I don't think it's something they really need to worry about until they know who's coaching the team in 2019. Is Edgar Bennett a legit option for a head coaching job, not just for Packers, but anywhere in the NFL? I would doubt it right now, simply because, being let go in Green Bay and then going to Oakland and having Oakland be as bad as they are, especially on offense, I can't see it. That's just the way the league works. It's your offense, your team gets hot, you win a lot of games, your name gets bandied about. Edgar's problem is, of course, he went from working for one guy who calls the plays to working for another guy who calls the plays. I think Edgar's a really good coach. I think he kind of got a raw deal in Green Bay, but I don't see him popping up on anybody's radar as a head coaching candidate anytime soon. And there we go. So let's get back to the live chat, shall we? Nags, what do you see as the biggest difference between Gudykunst and Ted's draft strategies based off 1 year? Not trading out of the first round? Cringe. I don't know. It doesn't seem that different as far as getting value where they picked. They went, Ted's last year, they got the 3 running backs there, and Goody's first year, they got the 3 wide receivers very similarly. I would say it's way too early to kind of glean any kind of information. Other than it looks like a strong draft class at first blush, but that can change quickly. You always have to let things play out when it comes to the draft, but early returns are good on Gudykunst. Do you think Philbin stays after this year? I do. If Mike's around. If Mike stays, I think Philbin stays. If Mike's gone, obviously Philbin will be looking for a job. Do you see Rodgers throwing more deep balls to MVS? MVS has speed and size to outrun and out-jump safeties. Greg, 100% I do. And I think a big part of it is something that Mike McCarthy touched on earlier today in his press conference when he was asked about Davante Adams and his being doubled so much against New England. I think it's something you're going to continue to see a lot of, and that's going to free up MVS. You're going to see safety shading. And when they're single high, he's going to be shading wherever Davante Adams is. That's going to give MVS some one-on-ones. And then if he continues to make people pay, then defenses will have to back off, and they'll have to play too high. Maybe that opens up the running game. But I definitely think, the biggest crime to me on Sunday night, coaching game plan-wise, was not feeding MVS. You saw how productive he was when they finally got him involved late in the third quarter. They should have been doing that in the first quarter. I think the kid's a real talent. And as long as teams are going to be paying attention to Davante Adams, which they undoubtedly will be, get that kid involved. He's got all the talent in the world. We need 2 more wide receivers. I'm not so sure I agree with your police work there, Riley. Obviously, they need as much talent as they can get. And if it is there in the draft, they can go get one. But I don't think it's as easy as just sitting there and saying they need to do this, XYZ, box themselves in. Let's watch EQ a little bit. Jamon Moore will have another year under his belt next year. He's still a talent. So I don't think it's as dire a need as maybe you're making it out to be. Could they use more talent? Always, of course, especially at that position when you got Aaron Rodgers throwing them the football. But I don't think it's the dire need. Is Byron Bell the starting right guard the rest of the way? He struggled the past 2 games. Eric, it sure sounds like it. Mike McCarthy was asked directly about Justin McCray today, and he admitted McCray's healthy. He's just been down or not playing. And, and then Michael Cohen followed up with, is, Byron Bell going to be the right guard? And unequivocally, Mike McCarthy said yes. So I agree with you. He has struggled, not just the last 2 weeks. I think he's struggled, the last month or so, even prior to the bye week. I think they like his veteran presence. And I know Justin McCray had a slow start to the year, but I like McCray. I think it wouldn't hurt them to insert him into the lineup. My thoughts on Ted Thompson being inducted into the Packers Hall of Fame: I think it's a wonderful honor. I think it's well-deserved. I think people slagging him off or whatever at the time of the announcement have to get a life and are pretty much showing their true colors of what losers they really are. I think that there's no doubt in my mind, and I don't know anything, I haven't been told anything, but it sure feels like they're doing it now quickly, seemingly quickly. I mean, it's been, he's still working for the organization due to his deteriorating health. It's something that, no one knows exactly what's going on with Ted, but it's pretty clear something's up, and I think they want to do it sooner rather than later so he can enjoy it. Does McCarthy run his scheme despite the players he has? Oh, yeah, no doubt. When are those Cheesehead TV shirts going to be ready? Riley, they will be ready this offseason. We'll be doing pretty much a complete site redesign this offseason, and when we relaunch, we'll have all sorts of merch for you guys, so be on the lookout. We need Jari Evans, man. Yeah, he would be a welcome addition right now. Do you think Rodgers wants Mike fired? Whew. I can't know the man's soul. I only know what he says, and he has been very complimentary of Mike throughout the last couple years, even when he's been supremely frustrated with the man. If I had to guess, I think Rodgers would probably welcome a shakeup, maybe welcome some new blood. I don't think he's ever going to say that. I don't think he's ever going to do anything to sabotage McCarthy. But I think it's only natural after spending most of his career with the guy that he's ready for a new voice. If we lose against the Dolphins, does that mean we are done for this year? Not necessarily, but it'll be getting late real early. I think this is not exactly a must-win, but it's as close as you can get without it being that directly. Who is the most evil Packers player? All time, it's got to be Charles Martin, right? I think that's an easy one. And I think it's a good place to leave it. Thanks a lot, everyone. I'm sorry if I couldn't get to your questions. Make sure you're checking Cheesehead TV for all the latest on the Packers. The injury report just came out. We'll have everything from today's practice, etc. If you're here on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. If you're on Facebook, share us, tell your friends. We are and will always be devoted to Green Bay Packers fans worldwide. Thanks a lot, everyone. Have a good night.